Okay. Really wish I would have watched a recap before this, but here we go nonetheless. This is your official Westworld Season 3, Episode 1 review and recap. This is Real Shift. I am Joe. We normally do movies on this channel, but since coronavirus has pretty much taken over the world, we're going to switch gears and we're going to go with a TV show. We actually covered the first 2 seasons of Westworld prior to this on the show before we switched over to video, so you can check those out if you want to. I should have checked them out personally because, again, this is a very difficult show to review, to be quite honest. It's not exactly cut and dry. There's a lot of moving parts to it. It's very difficult to follow everything. Some of it's a little bit convoluted, so to come into it after a good amount of time off and have to review Season 3 now, or at least the first episode of Season 3, it wasn't easy, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to kind of break this down the best I can, and hopefully we can make some sense of it. So, as far as like what's going on in the story, so we had the robot uprising towards the end of last season, which was led by Dolores, and it basically was a bloodbath. They escaped the park. They're no longer in Westworld. They're free, essentially, and they're in the real world. So this season is going to take place predominantly in the real world, it appears, which I think is good. I think Westworld should be a part of it at some point, but I don't have an issue with them taking it to the real world because it's the next logical step, I think, as far as, not that they've done everything that they could do with the whole simulation thing, but what we kind of learn about the real world in this episode kind of gives me hope about where we're heading in the show. And what I mean by that is we're all under the impression that this is the real world. And the real world, by for all intents and purposes, I thought was really cool, by the way, I should mention. It's got a very like a Blade Runner type feel to it, where it's kind of like this used future type thing where there's elements of, you know, present day and there's elements of the future kind of meshed together. It's really got a cool look to it. But throughout the episode, a couple times, it's kind of insinuated that it might be a simulation, like the real world itself is a simulation. So Westworld would have been a simulation within the simulation kind of thing. And it's insinuated a couple times in the episode. One by this drunken high guy at a party, and he's kind of just going off and no one's really paying him attention because he's drunk and he's high. That's what happens. But he's going on about how the real world could possibly be a simulation, and so that's the first hint. And then we have Dolores' new boyfriend, which his name is escaping me at the moment, but basically he's this really intelligent, smart guy, rich guy, and he's taken over his father's company, and his father has developed this system, but nobody really knows what it does. And I immediately, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what the simulation, that's what's controlling the simulation or whatever. So again, it's just me kind of theorizing about it because we don't have enough information to piece everything together. But that's just kind of a couple things that they said. Now, it could not be that at all. It could just be the writers just kind of throwing that out there to kind of throw everyone off, and then they'll throw us a curveball and take us in a different direction. You know, plot twists galore. But we'll see how it goes. It might be too on the nose for Westworld, but you never know. So this again has Dolores pretty much at the forefront of the story as the story begins, and she's basically out there and she's taking her revenge on all the people who did her wrong inside the park. Anyone who ever visited there, who took out their frustrations or their fantasies on her. She's going around in the real world now. She has them all stored in her head, I guess, and she's going around and she's going to extract revenge on all those people, which I think is pretty interesting. And it creates an even more interesting dynamic because even with the very first person she kills, she realizes that she has now helped another human being because the guy she kills was abusing his wife. So Dolores, in effect, is actually freeing not only the host now, she's freeing innocent human beings. And I think that's going to be important for her character moving forward. This season might have a lot to do with Dolores kind of rediscovering her humanity that she lost in Season 2. And kind of coming to the realization that there are humans who need help just as much as there are hosts. And not all humans are bad people. and I think that's going to be a major part of her arc in this story, and at least in season 3. So we'll see how that plays out, but I think that's kind of an interesting way to make her character interesting, because otherwise she's going to be very one-dimensional, just being a revenge character, and nobody really wants that. I will say I dug her look in this too. They kind of put the makeup on her to make her look almost slightly synthetic, like she's very sleek looking, and I thought that was pretty cool the way they designed her, or designed her look, I should say. And it should also be noted that some of the people she's killing, she's actually replacing them with hosts, so she's low-key building an army of sorts, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, so she may be planning a hostile takeover of the entire world, the real world, or the simulation, whatever it may be. So we'll see where that goes also moving forward. The other major character from season 2 that makes an appearance here is Bernard. He's been hiding out because he was basically blamed for the park massacre at the end of season 2. So he's been at this like industrial plant or whatever, and he's hiding out under a fake name. He's doing his own self-diagnostics, which is never a good thing, as we've seen pretty much in last season in Westworld. But he also has a bit of a, I guess, almost split personality that literally is triggered by a switch. Like, he can click this switch and he automatically goes into this badass mode where he kills people who, I guess, figured him out, which is interesting. I think that's a pretty cool development for him, because he's always been kind of an even-keeled character with not much emotion, just kind of very straightforward on his thinking and everything. So to add that layer of basically being a killer robot to it as well, it'd be interesting to see what that conflict of his two different type of personalities, what conflicts arise from that, because he clearly doesn't want to hurt anyone, but in certain cases he's going to have to, and then he has that switch to do so. So it'd be interesting to see if even one of those personalities takes over the other, you know what I'm saying? So we'll see where that goes, but I thought that was kind of interesting as far as Bernard's progression goes. The new character in the series is Aaron Paul's Caleb. I got a pretty good feeling for him, I guess. He seems like a character that doesn't quite know his place in this world. And, you know, a lot of people can identify with that for sure. So basically he's a guy who, he works this job where he works side by side with a robot, but the robot does most of the work, and you could tell it's an unfulfilling experience for him. Like, he's not very fulfilled in what he does for a living. And it's also probably not paying very well, because he, on the side, he does these, I guess you can call them black market crimes, and they have an app for it. It's pretty cool, actually. But they have apps where this app where you go into it and you look for a crime that you want to commit, or you're willing to commit, and then you go do it and you get money for it. And you see him like kind of picking and choosing which ones he does. Like, he doesn't want to do anything that's too crazy, because you could tell it's not something that he really wants to do. He's only doing it because he has to do it, because he needs money. But it's just interesting to me that he's kind of a new character. I think he's the polar opposite, kind of, in a sense that he's in the real world. He's presumably a human being, but we don't technically know, I guess. But it's insinuated that he is, I guess. But he's in the real world. He's actually free, but he's not really free, because he's kind of under this pressure to do something more, I guess. And that's just the impression I got from him. So it'd be interesting to see how his character plays in, and especially since him and Dolores kind of come together at the end of this episode. He basically helps her, so we'll see where that goes. I don't know, we'll see. I didn't get a whole lot from him in this episode, but I guess they're kind of building to what his actual purpose is. As far as the other characters from season 1 and 2 that show up again in this, there's Robo Charlotte. Basically, she's the host version of Charlotte. She's now taken over, and she's acting CEO of Delos. And she makes the decision to basically continue host production, and for all intents and purposes, it appears she's going to try to reopen the park, which is kind of a shocking thing, her being a host, why she would want the park open again, and why she would want hosts to be in that situation again. But again, we don't know a lot about her intentions quite yet, but we'll see where it goes, we'll see what happens. But I think it's important, again, to have her and to have Delos still in it, because they need to reintroduce Westworld at some point, because Westworld isn't the show without Westworld, in my opinion. Again, I'm fine with the whole real world setting for now, but at some point I think we have to go back to the theme park setting, at least every once in a while. Maybe not for long periods of time, but it needs to be a part of the show in some way. So I think that's their way of doing it with her. I know a lot of people think that Westworld is kind of pretentious at times, and I guess it could be. Others look at it as just being smart, like it's just something that you can't look at your phone and watch it. You have to pay attention when you're watching it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's just a lot of tiny details in there. And sometimes even these episodes require more than one viewing, which is something I didn't even do, so I might even be missing stuff too. This is off of one viewing I'm doing this. But, yeah, it's definitely a show you need to pay attention to. I think overall, I like the direction that season 3 has gone in the first episode. I like the new world, the real world setting. I like the focus on less characters at a time. I think it's important that, like, major characters like Maeve, for instance, and the Man in Black weren't even in this episode, and I think that's good. But it leads to, I think it's going to lead eventually to less convoluted plots. We're able to digest everything much easier rather than having a bunch of stuff thrown at us all at once. And I hope that makes the show a little less convoluted, I guess. Because that was kind of the problem with season 2, if there was one, is that things got a little convoluted, especially toward the end. So we'll see how it plays out. But overall, I like the direction of it. And I hope this is kind of taking us and getting us on our way back to more how it was in season 1. More of the quality of season 1, which I was, raving about at the time. But, yeah. Definitely a good start to the 3rd season. Let me know what you guys thought about it, though. Did you enjoy it? Did you love it? What was your favorite parts? What was your least favorite parts? Are you done with Westworld? Do you think it's the best show ever? Whatever you want to tell me, let me know in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and let us know what you thought about this. And if I get good feedback on this, I'll definitely come back and continue to do the rest of the episodes for the rest of the season. So just give me lots of feedback so I know you guys are enjoying this. And we'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching.